Welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Hosted by Heather Leigh, PhD, Exploring the Paranormal offers a new, fresh look into paranormal research. Join Heather as she discusses some of the many haunted locations worldwide, discusses why these locations are haunted, hear from paranormal researchers about their personal experiences at these locations. Additionally, Heather takes a journey into the science behind the paranormal, discussing topics such as thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle and how they both affect paranormal activity. Now, your host of Exploring the Paranormal, Dr. Heather Leigh.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. I am super excited to have you all here today. I already see a few of you popping up on the comments. Hello, Lee. Good morning. Glad to have you here this morning. I hope you are going to enjoy today's show. It is, I'm super excited about it. For once, I've actually done a little bit of research ahead of time, so I have a whole bunch of things that I want to talk about. But for those of you who are new to the show, I'm Dr. Heather Leigh. I specialize in paranormal science, so I go behind the science of the paranormal, as the introduction does state. I'm looking for reasons why paranormal activity happens, not just that it does. And for those of you, again, like I said, those of you who are new, I'm a researcher, lecturer, author, and of course, radio show host. And I'm super excited to have everyone here. But before we get started, I do want to do a quick shout out and thank you to my sponsor, The Interactions. It's the company that you can work from home and get your life back. Like I say every week, this is the perfect company for a paranormal researcher because you can pick when you work when you want to, work when you can, and still have time to do plenty of paranormal investigations and the research that we need while making the money to pay for that equipment that we got to buy. This is a 100% remote company looking for US-based customer service representatives to support Omni's Fortune 500 clients. For more information, you could always visit my website, heatherleighphd.com, or getgiglife.life/paranormal. And all this information is also on my Facebook page at Dr. Heather Leigh. And so just to get started, for those of you who didn't see the event, I do have a returning guest, Joe Franke. He trained side by side with Ed and Lorraine Warren. He was learned everything he knows from them, started at a young age, and he's going to share the story, I'm sure. But Lorraine actually told him that he was meant to do this work and was looking forward to teaching him everything she knows. So this is going to be a fabulous show. I know I've asked several times different questions about his starting, but Joe and I like to have fun, joke around with each other. We're actually working behind the scenes on a few other projects. And I do have some questions that I don't normally ask. And that's only because I know him so well. So hopefully we'll either get him embarrassed or he'll actually answer the questions. It's always hit or miss with Joe. And then real quick, I want to do a quick recap. We have my books that are available now. You have Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns and Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley. Both of those are available either through Arcadia Publishing. You can go to my Facebook page and send me a message, and I can get you the information on how to get an autographed copy. Or you can go to Books A Million. You can go to Books A Million and Barnes & Noble, any of those locations. Also, if you're in Vegas, I do hear that they are in Walgreens, places like the Mob Museum in Las Vegas carry it. Clark County Museum has it in stock. So you can go there and get all of it. I did finish Haunted Florida Lighthouses, and I do have the release date. It is September 11th. So stay tuned and pay a lot of attention to my Facebook page, because I am going to be doing a virtual live autograph signing where you can join me live on a call one night, and I'll autograph the book right there on the show, and then I will send it out to you. And then also, you guys know I'm working on several other books, including Haunted Florida Ghost Towns, Haunted Florida Theme Parks, Haunted Florida roadside attractions, and Haunted Florida Civil War sites. All of those will be available through Arcadia Publishing over the next year. So super exciting, so many exciting things to do and plenty of different events. I don't have the dates written down in front of me, but at the end of September, you guys will, for those of you who are in Florida, I will be at Phantasm again. Hopefully, I'm still waiting to get the final details from them, but they have invited me back to do a book signing at that location or at that event. So stay tuned for more details on that. And up tomorrow night, special guest Matthew Jackson from Paraholics will be joining me from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. along with my co-host Philip Wyatt on Ghost Education 101 to talk about all things paranormal. Matthew's a great guy. You guys are going to have fun listening to him. So make sure you go to Ghost Education 101 on Facebook and pull that information up to make sure you join in on that live broadcast tomorrow night. And a few more things to wrap up my introduction. We have, you guys always know, Real Haunts, Ghost Hounds, and Real Haunts 3 are available on Prime Video, or I think they're still on Tubi for free. And later this fall, I'm teaching the 2 courses at TMCC on September 25th, the ABCs of Paranormal Research, and on October 9th, Ghost Hunting 101. Registration for those will be later this late summer. And yeah, Lee, Joe's a great guy. He is so interesting. I could listen to him. I mean, when he calls me, we talk for hours. And it's just, he's such a great guy with so many amazing stories. While we're waiting for Joe to come, I know I kind of went through my introduction a little fast today because I had a really interesting message the other day. And it was from John. It says, Heather, I hear the Heisenberg principle mentioned in your intro. What exactly is that, and how does it relate to paranormal activity? And that's one question I get all the time. People are always like, is there really a science behind the paranormal? How does quantum physics fit in with the paranormal? And believe it or not, I mean, everyone has their own beliefs as to how things happen, but it all goes back to the theory energy cannot be destroyed nor created, and the 3 principles of thermodynamics and all of that. So basically, the Heisenberg principle is one thing that I do a lot of research on, and it's also known as the uncertainty principle. It was discovered by Werner Heisenberg. He was a German physicist and Nobel laureate. He discovered it in 1927. And essentially, this principle states that we cannot know both the position and the speed of a particle, such as a photon or electron, with perfect accuracy. The more we nail down the particle's position, the less we know about its speed and vice versa. So essentially what this means is in the spiritual world, if you observe like a negative emotion like anger or jealousy, hatred, or a vicious nature, such as a negative entity that we encounter sometimes, just observing it and being aware that it's there and not trying to change the anger and just being a mere observer disassociates these emotions and brings transformation within it automatically. So basically, it's just, translated a little bit more is this concept means that as we witness paranormal activity, it's all based on the witness and the observer. This is why people experience paranormal activity differently. Why 2 people can be in the same room, but they're of course not in the exact same location. And they see it differently. They experience it differently. They hear it differently. And it's all based on their position and the distance from the activity's epicenter. This is one explanation as to how paranormal activity can come and go from our world. The idea of the Heisenberg principle only scratches the surface of quantum physics and how it can relate to paranormal activity. I know one theory. Oh, good morning, Courtney. Hope you're having a great morning so far. Thank you for joining us. One theory is, let's say you guys are looking at, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this without a video. But if you're staring at, here we go, bow and arrows. If you're shooting the bow and arrow, you can, you see witness the person shooting it, but if you're on the left or the right side of the person, you're going to see it differently. And, that's kind of the concept of how, depending on movement, where we're located and all of that stuff. And I'm going to be doing, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, a longer video on the Heisenberg principle, because like I said, this only scratches the surface. And in the short time I would have to answer this question. There's really not enough time to dive deep into it. And you also have to look into more than just his principle. You need to also look at thermodynamics, theories of relativity. All of those things all tie into and go back to as to how we experience paranormal activity differently. And I know, of course, people who don't follow the science, a lot of, or not people who don't follow the science. If you look at scientists, the reason why they don't view the paranormal science field as a true science is because it's no true evidence. And that's what we need to try to figure out. We need to get that. We need to understand the science behind it so we can capture that evidence and bring it forth to other scientists to make this field a true science. And of course, I don't think that's going to be anything I see in this lifetime. So who knows? And hold on a second. Oh, okay. Sorry, Joe had called me earlier and I was hoping he wasn't canceling, but he's not. So Joe will be here. He just sent me a message. He's was trying to catch me before the show started to talk about something. So that's one relief off my page, because I was joking with Todd, my producer, beforehand, saying I don't have enough to talk about if he doesn't come on. So we're all good in that aspect. Okay. And so if you guys have any questions, as you guys know, sorry, the TV's on behind me. If you guys have any questions, just feel free. Thank you, Courtney. Truly appreciate that. And but yeah, ask any questions you have. You guys know the show is completely open. I'm sure a lot of you are saving your questions for Joe. But for those of you, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Joe. He has worked closely with a lot of people in the paranormal field. Of course, like I said, Ed and Lorraine Warren. He's done a lot of major investigations on his own. I'm not sure if he did a case with John Zaffis, but I know he has with a few other people in the paranormal community. And he is really good, very knowledgeable, tons and tons and tons of stories. Like Lee said earlier, he's very interesting and she could listen to him all day. So can I. So make sure you have all of your questions ready. He should be here in about 20 minutes or so. And since with having Joe on here today, I do want to talk about, like I said, all things paranormal, but being with his experience that he has in the field, I want to talk a little bit more about demonic possession. I know we talked a little bit about last week when I had the team members from Georgia Paranormal Investigations on. We had a question about protecting yourself. So when it comes to, demonic possession or negative entities or anything like that, because we know that actually having a true demonic case is very slim, but we do encounter those negative activities more than we care to. We have, different ways to protect yourself. I always tell people, people laugh at me when I say this, but it's true. If you need to wholeheartedly believe that something's going to protect you. So if you're, Catholic, you use your cross. Oh, I need to review those. Actually, I'll get to that in just a minute. And we will talk about that with Joe. Todd just said he'd like to hear about the different stages of possession. So we'll definitely talk about that. I always get them reversed and mixed up, but we'll definitely talk about that. But if you truly wholeheartedly believe in what you're using to protect yourself with, it is going to be 99.99999% more effective. For example, if you think your teddy bear is going to protect you, bring it with you, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to. Like we talked about last week, I use crystals, different herbs. My favorite, this one I'll talk about, I could talk about this one for a little bit, is cascarilla. This one goes back to different voodoo practices, but it has been used more and more in different pagan rituals. It's actually the crust eggshells of a black hen, and it's believed to provide the same protection to us as it does to the yolk of the egg, or the chick that's inside the egg while it's developing. So I've used this in so many different things. I know people who will sprinkle, because if you go to any type of metaphysical store, they'll come in little ketchup cups, those little ketchup cups you used to get in the cafeteria, and they're hard packed. But what I do is I break them apart and I put them in a vial. People have crushed it up and put it in their mop bucket before mopping. Some people have done it in the sink before, wiping down their counters. I've used it to Um, there was one I'm trying to think of. There was one home, they were Catholic, and we used it in conjunction with holy water. We would put the cross over the top of the door frame, and then I would seal the cross with the cascarilla. I've used it to draw pentacles in a home with a where they followed different pagan beliefs. So we did pentacles over all the doors to protect it. You can use it to sprinkle around your yard, around your house. Use it similar. You can even use it with the different various sea salts we talked about last time. And Leigh, this is something that you can pass on to your friend. I completely forgot about it. Yes, baby blanket was magic and protected me. I love that. It's all about what you put your belief behind. But Leigh, make sure you mention this to your friend. And if you message me on Facebook, I think we're friends, I can get you information on where to get that cascarilla. And that is a great help too for casting out negative spirits. And I use it in my house, and I rarely have anything negative come through in the aspect. It's always been positive spirits that have made their way into my home. So yeah, it's a very, very effective tool. And I take it on all investigations with me. You can even wash your hands with it. I've actually used it after an investigation and dusted my hands with it. I've put a little bit of it in my sage spray that I carry on every investigation with me. Courtney, it is made with, I think it's the crushed eggshells of a black hen, I think is the specifics for it. But, that's okay for your lagging. And I'm not sure if it comes with sea salt. I have mixed it with sea salt before after I've broken it up, because it does come hard packed. But it's a great little tool. But I know originally it was supposed to be the shells of a black hen's eggs, but I think now they might use it from various chicken eggs as well, depending on how they manage to get it nowadays. But the original, I guess you would say the voodoo way of doing it was with the black hens. But yeah, definitely protective, and you could feel it. One example I can give is we were doing a residential investigation, and we went in thinking it was demonic, because the first team came out and said, "Oh my God, it's demonic." So we went in, shields up, fully ready to do it. You may go purchase that hen. If I had a yard big enough, I might get one so I could have my own eggs too. And everything happened. A team member, he completely lost sense of time, and even where he was. And you could see, I've explained this before, where his eyes turned completely black. Freaked me out because he's a big guy. And I knew I had to get him out of there. So I gave him a few moments to regain his composure, and he did, luckily. So I didn't have to confront him to get him out. And then I was attacked while trying to cleanse the home and knocked down on my knees. And during that time, we were using the cascarilla, but in combination of blessing the home with cascarilla, that was when we did the pentacle over the door. We sprinkled it on all of her windowsills, and then we did a perimeter around the outside of the house. So in combination of that, and after I was attacked, my yelling at the spirit like it was a 2-year-old that did something bad, you could see that the house was brighter once we were done. So it's really, really a powerful tool, along with standing your ground and, standing up to these spirits. They're no different than bullies on the playground. If you stand up to them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to back down, go away, and kind of do their thing. And so, yeah, it's very interesting. Oh, I love black animals. Yes, a black hen would be interesting. I don't even think I've ever seen one in person. I've just seen photos, and it's very interesting. Okay. So yeah, so with that being said, you guys could do that. And I had another note here that I was going to cover, but I don't see it. Oh, real quick while we're waiting, next week, and I'll bring this up again later at the end of the show for those of you who might have missed the beginning of the show. Next week's show is going to be absolutely amazing. I'm doing a featured show on women of the paranormal. We have Catherine Sorilos. She is from Greece, and she's a psychic medium. Aurora North. She's from Canada, and also a psychic medium, Nicole Ray. She is an author. She's been on my show before, researcher, investigator, sweet girl. And then Christine Ayers, and she's been on the show as well, and she has some amazing, amazing stories that it's going to be a fun show. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different stories to share, and I'm absolutely looking forward to next week's show. So make sure you tune in next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Ooh, excuse me, getting the hiccups here. For all of that. And okay, so we're about 10 minutes away from Joe joining us, and I'm just looking through my notes again real quick, guys, so please be patient with me. I tried to plan today a little bit more than I normally do, and I still talk faster than the time allowed. And a black rooster. That had to have been gorgeous, Lee. I would have loved to have seen that black rooster. That would have been nice. And let me pull up some other notes to see if I have anything else that I can chat about while we wait for Joe to join us. So one of these days, you guys are going to log on, and I'll be fully prepared. And actually, what I can do is I also have an interesting photo from that case that I was just talking about. And this is a Brewster. That's funny, Courtney. In the case that I was talking about, I blurted out the best I can so you just see the entity, but the woman put her home up for sale right after because she didn't want to continue living there. And something told me one day to go to realtor.com and look up her address. And I scrolled through all the photos, and in one of the photos, you can see in a reflection off of her computer screen going back to her closet door. So it's just a plain closet door, what looks like two shadow figures standing at the closet door in the and this was on realtor.com. So of course I screenshot the photo, but then I've blurred as much out as I could so you couldn't identify her home. And so you just see the computer screen. So I will make sure I share that on my Facebook page so you guys can see that, because that was pretty interesting. Okay. And I guess what I can talk about real quick while I'm waiting for Joe to come on is currently a presentation that Joe and I are working on to go on tour with is for a different lecture series is When Ghosts Attack. So we're, of course, during that presentation, we're going to be talking about, of course, Robert the Doll, Annabelle, Amityville, Conjuring House, the Villisca Axe Murder House, and Roland Doe. So you'll have a whole bunch of different stories on that. I go in more depth on the case that I was just talking to you about. I will also go into more detail behind the experiences that happened at the Florence mine. I don't know if I've shared that story on this one. I think I have on this show, but this was, we were doing an investigation and we actually crawled into a hole. I have interesting photos of me trying to crawl into that hole. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm very claustrophobic. So the fact that I did this, I took very, very much pride in myself doing it. And, but while I was back there, I completely felt like I was being crushed. And what happened is we stopped at a section of the mine and then it went further back and where it dead ended where it had collapsed. So I decided that I was going to crawl back there and do an EVP session and just felt crushed. I was hearing men screaming. I started crying. They actually had to get me out of that area. And for what was only a minute or two, they said it felt like it was hours for me. And when we had talked to the mine owner, he had said that area of the mine had collapsed. Men were caught in there, and they still to this day don't think they got everybody out. So that was kind of very interesting, and we talk about that in more detail. And then, of course, all the different, I'm trying to think, I'm looking through here. I know Joe has a whole bunch of stories, so I'm going to talk to him and let him discuss what he'll be covering in it because we haven't quite added his stuff to it. But investigating in Las Vegas, I've experienced everything from feeling like punched in the stomach. We have a creepy EVP that when asked, how did you murder your victims? Because we were in a mob location, I cut off their hands. I have an EVP of who we believe might have been Tupac. So that's really not a when ghost attack, but I think that's a real interesting one. Another location, we have a strange EVP that almost sounds, I refer to it as like what you would expect a pterodactyl to sound like. An EVP of a child's voice crying, "Help me." And my very interesting obelisk session, which I'm still not 100% sure if I trust that or not. When I was in the basement. Yes, I've heard stories about stuff like that, and it's very interesting what you can find on Zillow or Realtor.com if you do the research to see the photos in the house. Because, if you think about it, it's no different than the photo from Amityville. It was a journalist just snapping photos of the house. Wasn't doing it with the intention of capturing a spirit, but they did. So you have all these realtors out there snapping photos like crazy, and they actually capture things that they don't realize they capture, and they don't know what they're looking for. So it's real interesting what you can see on and it's funny now because we're looking to buy a house, and I'll go through Zillow and I'll be like, yep, nope, just because I get an eerie feeling about that. Also I'll need to I'm now finally capable to share this now that Real Haunts 3 is out, but I captured a apparition of a spirit in a window. I know it's hard to say that I've captured in a window, but you can see from the full photo that there's nothing in front of the window to cast a reflection. But we did capture a spirit, a shadow figure inside a window of a home in Goldfield that I have not been able to share up until now. So I will definitely make sure I get that out to you guys. It's a very, very interesting photo. And I'm trying to think. Okay. And that's what I have for all of those. So stay tuned. And Joe and I will be doing this on our tour, but I may try to get him on Ghost Education 101 one night, and we could do like a quick preview of it to give you guys an idea of what to expect when we are doing our different things. And I was really hoping that I could make some announcements today, but we still don't have confirmation on the things that we're working on. So yeah, we're gonna definitely have to sit back and wait. But amazing things are planned for Joe and I, as well as myself. I do have a lot of different things I'm doing with the new book coming out. I have a couple book signings in line already here in Florida. I know I'm trying to get up to Connecticut later this year. I've been asked to a couple different conferences that I'm just trying to work out my schedule to make it happen. So definitely, I'm sorry I don't have those today, but I was really hoping to, and I'm kind of bummed that I don't. But in the next couple weeks, you can definitely expect a lot happening, especially as we get closer to, I was going to say Christmas. Oh my goodness, that goes to show where my head's at. The closer we get to Halloween and everything like that. Oh, and one project, this one I will be doing on Ghost Education 101 once I get it completely, because I want to research it right. But I have been, with science background that I've been doing, I have been doing research into could Dracula really existed, and everything from the different scientific methods and reasons why. I've pulled a whole bunch of journals on different conditions, and I did a brief presentation on it when I was at Phantasm last year. But after I did that presentation, I was kind of, me being the perfectionist I am on certain things, I kind of just was like, oh, I really should have covered X, Y, and Z. And yes, getting closer to Christmas is getting closer to Halloween. Exactly. So keep an eye out for that. And this is where my science background comes in from my paranormal degree. And definitely want to make sure that I dive into that more scientifically than just online research. And a friend, ooh, yeah, that's always the creepy part. I would always, I'm always afraid of, not afraid of the spirits, but I'm always afraid of the startle factor, like looking out a window and having someone standing there that shouldn't be standing there. And it's very, very interesting. Would love to hear more about that story. Definitely, Courtney. And oh, coming up in a couple weeks, I don't have the exact date in front of me, but I do have the director and one other person. I have two people coming from the Hatman Project to discuss their project, the Hatman phenomena, and a whole bunch of other things. So that's going to be another interesting story or another interesting show. Let me actually see when they're going to be on for you guys, because that is a show you don't want to miss. And I'm pulling it up now. Of course, my computer's going slow. Okay. On May 9th is when they'll be on. And I'll have more about that. But real quick, since I have the schedule up, of course, this week we have Joe Franke. Next week we have Women of the Paranormal. On April 25th, I have Dan Rivera. He works with Tony Spera. He will be on to promote their event and also to talk about different paranormal activity and his experiences. On May 2nd, I have Christopher and Anson coming back from Anubis Paranormal. For those of you who don't know, when Christopher was on the show, Anson couldn't make it, so I've invited them both back on because I cannot wait to hear about their experiences. And then on the 9th, we have the show about the Hatman Project. And I have so many more. I know I've messaged over the last couple of weeks that I need to get up and get going on here so that way we can do it. And real quick, just so you guys know, for Ghost Education 101, we air every 2 weeks. Tomorrow is Matthew Jackson from Paraholics. On April 26th, I have Lisa, the haunted librarian, coming back to talk about York ghost merchants. She does great research, and I love the presentations she puts together. Then hosting a paranormal event was rescheduled. It will be on May 10th. Then we are going to, I have David Taylor from Our Haunted Lives, Bill Slevin from Paranormal Existence Research Society here in Florida, Larry Lawson from Indian River County, Indian River Hauntings. And our topic of discussion is going to be orbs. Then we're doing a show, Science in the Paranormal, a paranormal roundtable discussion on collecting evidence, and then a panel discussion on Ouija boards that will be later this summer. So definitely a lot of things happening. And I cannot wait for all of the amazing things that we do have scheduled and that we can talk about. Oh, the Hatman, it's they can explain it a little bit more than I can, Lee, but it basically is, there's a theory out there where before major disasters happen or negative events in life happen, the Hatman makes an appearance, and it's seen different ways, but basically it's a shadow figure with a hat. Most of the time I believe it is a fedora, but I do definitely, I'll post the link on my Facebook page as well. Just remind me, because I'm traveling the next couple of days and I'm not home. So just remind me and I will make sure I get that on there. I've heard that they can be watchers. So definitely, I mean, I know, Lee, you don't miss any of the shows. So you'll definitely want to be here for that one. And no Joe yet. Oh my goodness. I'm actually going to send him a text message because he should have, and Joe's usually early. Waiting for you. You guys will have to pick on him for being late. Good morning, Kenneth. How are you doing today? Glad to have you on here. Oh, you don't know how you do. Yeah, I'm actually out visiting my parents. I came out to visit them for a few days for Easter and to help my mom do a few things around the house. And all is okay, just kind of traveling and visiting. Oh, good, Kenneth. Glad to have you here this morning. You might need to send a message to Joe and tell him to get his butt on the show because he's running a little late. But since we're a little bit overdue for a quick commercial break, I am going to, before we go to commercial break, as always, you guys know I am so truly appreciative of my show sponsor. And I want to give a shout out to them again before we see the commercials. But Omni Interactions, thank you for being a sponsor. This is the company where you can work from home full or part-time hours that are convenient to your own schedule. Working for Omni allows you to create your schedule in 30-minute or 1-hour blocks, and definitely a company that allows you to get your life back and work on your schedule. And Mr. Frankie's in the house. Okay, so we are going to go to a quick commercial break, and when we return, I will be joined by my guest. Talk to you guys soon. Hey everyone, and welcome back. And before we get started, Todd, that was an amazing commercial. If you can send me a copy of that, I'll definitely share that out. I absolutely love that. The music that goes with it. I was dancing here behind the scenes. But we are about to bring in, actually, I really don't need to give Joe an introduction because he's been on the show before. And trust me, he's going to tell you enough about himself that I'll let him do the talking. So let's welcome Joe to the show.
Hey, Heather.
Hey, Joe, how's it going?
I am such a big dumb animal. I clicked the wrong link. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm here. And I clicked on the top link, not the other one. So
the one that says watch.
I'm an asshole. Sorry I'm a big dumb animal,
I was gonna say I
can't believe it. I'm like, what did I do? I'm here. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, oh, I clicked the wrong one.
And I was even Kenneth was watching. I was even telling him to message you to get on the show.
I can't believe I did that. It's been a frazzling morning here, and but I was signing on at like 10:15. I'm like, okay, I'm here.
Oh, and I've just been
My
rambling
apologies.
the whole time. No, that's okay.
That's right. I ramble all the time.
We're so excited to have you here. I know a lot of people. I know Lee earlier said that she loves listening to you talk and could listen to you all day long. And I know Todd had mentioned earlier that he would like to hear about the different stages of possession. So I'm sure we'll come brush across that today with having you here as well. Diet says, "Geez, Joe, finally."
Who said that?
Diet.
Diet? Oh boy, I gotta call her.
You owe me a call. No.
I know. I tried calling you, but you wouldn't pick up.
Oh, 5 minutes before the show started.
I know.
But real quick before we get started, another quick shout out to everybody joining us. We have Lee, Courtney, Kenneth is here, Diet's here, and Artist Lana joined. Hi Artist, how are you doing? Yeah. Yes, it's a woman thing, definitely a woman thing. Good at improvisation. So as always, I don't have a list of questions for you. I just figured we could just chat like we always do. But the one thing, of course, I did mention earlier before you came on that you did study with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and that Lorraine said that almost handpicked you and that you were chosen to do this work, and kind of want you to elaborate that a little bit and share some of your stories from when you started.
Oh, sure. God, I tell this story in my sleep. It's fresh in my mind. Of course, I can't remember where I put my keys, but I met Laurel and I, my wife. She was just my girlfriend at the time. She had saw in one of the local paper it was back in like September of '86. We were just dating at the time, and she's like, "Oh, the Warrens." Now I had heard of Ed and Lorraine. I had seen him on television and print media. I read articles. And she's like, I don't want to go to the movies tonight, but there's a haunted lecture, a supernatural lecture happening in one town over from us. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I mean, I've always been, fascinated by, ghosts and demons and things like that, but never thought I would be where I am today. However, so when we walked into the building, I remember Lorraine was at like a table, folding table or whatever. It was at the Holiday Inn in North Haven, I believe, Connecticut. for those listening that know where that is. And so Lorraine was like selling the tickets at the table, and I'm walking up with Laurel, and she looks at me, and I remember she just cocks her head to the side, and she's like, "Honey, have we met before?" She called everybody honey. She was such a sweetheart. God love her. Um, and I said, "No, Lorraine," I said, "I've heard a lot about you. I've seen you on television, read, newspaper." Uh, and she's looking at me really kind of looking like I found out later she was reading my aura. She could see auras. And she's like, "There's a reason why you're here tonight." She goes, "Make sure you see Ed and I after the show." So I'm sitting there, and I remember I was really like nervous and excited. And I'm like, "What does she want to talk to me about?" I was like, could hardly keep a thought in my head. And Ed was there, and Tony, of course, was there. Um, and so, after the show, Lorraine's such a sweetheart. She's talking to everybody, answering people's questions. Ed's packing up, going, "Come on, let's go, Lorraine. I'm hungry." And we went across the street to the diner. Ed loved his diners. I always told him he should write a book on diners. We would go to the diner, and so I sat across from her at the diner, and she was holding my hand, and she's reading my aura. I knew that at the time she had explained what she was doing, and she goes, "Honey, I can tell you were meant to do this work." She's like, "Would you like to come and work with us?" And I'm like, yeah. I didn't have to think about that too long. Obviously, I didn't know what that entailed at the time, but they used to have classes at Hawley Manor, if my memory serves me correct. Forgive me, I'm going back 37 years now. And there was a little restaurant. I think it's now the Inn at Newtown in Newtown, Connecticut. And there was a little back room, not much bigger than a coat closet. I think it was the coat closet, actually. And there was probably about, including Laurel and I, there was probably about 6 people, if I remember correctly. And Ed would come in with his box of his tape recorder and tapes and notes, and they would go over the cases like Amityville and Annabelle, and the Rhode Island case, and some of the cases that Enfield poltergeist that the Conjuring movies were based on. And Ed would play the recordings of the demonic voices that would just be coming out of thin air. And I'm sitting there, and people are like, "Oh, were you scared?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was scared. I didn't know my ass from my elbow back then." And hearing these things and hearing the description, and how Ed told us how he interviewed these things, and then he all of a sudden abruptly he hits on the button, and he shuts off the recording. He's like, "All right, we don't want to give it too much recognition. That's enough." you know? And he was right. You don't want to give these things recognition, and bring that onto yourself. So that's how we got started there. And then so I used to go to a lot of their lectures for them, with them actually, and I learned that way. Just from even the repetition of them going over the same cases and stuff, and they would mix it up. I learned so much just from watching and listening. I also doubled back then as their security. Tony will back me up on that one probably. I used to sit in the back, and every once in a while you get a wiseacre that would, start heckling them, and I would just kind of walk up from behind and say, "Hey, look, you paid your money to see a show, but so did all these other people. Don't disrespect the Warrens." I said, "I will personally remove you." And I usually didn't have a problem. I don't think I had to throw too many people out, but most people were very respectful. It's like, and I tell people to this day, I said, "Look, if you don't believe in their methods or their work or whatever, that's fine. You're entitled to your own opinion." I said, "But don't ever let me hear you badmouth Ed and Lorraine, because you didn't know them as people. I did. They were like grandparents to me. I've known them so long, but, I don't like when people bash the Warrens. It's like, look, if you don't agree with their methods or whatever, fine, but be respectful about it, especially today when they're not here to defend themselves." So, I take that very, very personally. So anyway, then after one of the shows, it was one of the early shows, like real recently after we met, they had something that they would do from time to time called a ghost safari. If anybody on the show is listening and remembers those. And what we would do is we would meet up. Everyone would take their own cars, and we would meet up a place called Bailey's. It was a restaurant not too far from their home. And, we'd all circle around in a parking lot, and Ed and Lorraine would explain what we're going to do. And what we would do is we would be like a wagon train. We'd all be driving down the road, and we would go to various locations where they had worked on cases. I remember we stopped once at, I forget the name of the church. It wasn't Our Lady of the Holy Rosary Chapel, where they're resting. It was another church, if I remember, and it was up in that area of the state. And they was talking about an exorcism that had been performed there that they were involved with, and that's when I first learned about exorcisms and things like that. And then, today I sit there at 3 a.m. watching The Exorcist by myself, laughing my butt off. But how many people could say that? So then I remember towards the end of the day. I mean, this went on all day. I think we met around 11, and we were done by 6 or so because it was getting dark. And we ended up at Dudleytown, the cursed village. So many stories about Dudleytown that you can't, you don't know which ones are true. But Ed had just come off, I believe, his first heart attack. And Ed couldn't make the trek down into Dudleytown. If anybody's been to Dudleytown, it's really hard to find. If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd probably walk right by it. All that's left are some old rock stone foundations. The last time I was there, I got to be honest with you, it's probably been almost 20 years. I don't go up there. It's quite a drive for me. It's probably an hour and a half from where I live in Connecticut. It's up in northwestern Connecticut. And we had one of the other students of Ed and Lorraine's had been there many times and was going to take us down in there. So there's a whole group of us, maybe a dozen people. And it was a hike. And you're walking over felled trees and rocks and everything, so you had to be careful. So I remember Ed saying, well, I'm going to stay up here because we're going to go get some gas because they were very low on gas. He's like, I don't want to run out of gas. So Ed and Lorraine stayed behind with the car. We went down in there, found the old foundations, took a bunch of pictures. The gentleman that was leading the group was telling us stories. How eerie it is. You don't really hear much animal life and birds, and of course it planted the seed, and you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't really hear anything, but you could hear the brook, you could hear the rustling of leaves. It was very placid, very tranquil place. It is, that area is part of the Appalachian Trail, so you're allowed in there during the day, but don't be caught in there after dusk because all the neighbors know if there's a car they don't recognize, they'll call the police. They'll call the state police. And, you're lucky if you just get kicked out. You might get cited for trespassing. I'm sure there's people that's actually been arrested. But a lot of things would happen in there. I mean, Satanists would go in there and have like these satanic altars with the inverted pentagram, and you'd find all kinds of bones. Hopefully they were animal bones, And I remember there was an altar there, and at a different time, I was up there. We kind of smashed it, and we destroyed the altar, and just I was young. I was very young and dumb. So we come back, and Ed and Lorraine are there. I didn't know what had happened, but they were there. And what happened is they couldn't get the car started. I don't think Tony wasn't with us. It was just Ed and Lorraine. And they couldn't get their car started. Now, it was the end of the day, end of the tour, the Ghost Safari. And everyone was leaving. And I'm like, well, I look at my girlfriend, Laurel. I'm like, I can't leave them here. So we were like the last ones to leave. And I had my toolbox in my trunk. And I said, well, let me take a look at it. So we popped open the hood, and I'm like, no, Ed, you're getting gas. And, there's gas shooting into the carburetor. I said, I'm probably 20 minutes, half hour. I'm like stumped because I'm like, it's getting gas, but it won't fire. So I'm like, okay. And then I thought about something. The light bulb went off in my head. I said, could it be that simple? So I said, Ed, let me get in there for a second. I get in the car, I open up the fuse box, and I pull out the fuse for the fuel pump, and it's blown. So I'm like, okay. So I took the fuse out of the radio and popped it in there because he didn't have a spare. Started right up. Car started right up. They were still low on gas. He had just thought he ran out of gas, So They were so happy and excited. Oh, come on, kids, we're gonna go to dinner. I'm hungry, So he called them. He's a kid. He always called me kid. Hey, kid, come on, let's go. And we went down to a restaurant somewhere on Route 7, I forget, and had dinner. Oh, it's still early. Come back to the house. I want to show you the museum. Okay. You know, again, I'm a greenhorn. I'm brand new. I had never been to the museum yet. And so he took us up. We're sitting in the kitchen having coffee. And Ed's telling me the story of when they came back from Amityville. And he told me that they were upstairs and I'm trying to remember. But I remember me, as I talk about it, standing in the kitchen by the refrigerator. And to my right, heading towards the street, towards the front door, to my right was a staircase that goes down into Ed's Halloween room into the basement. And then there's a tunnel that leads from there into the museum. So he's telling me about, he says, yeah, well, one night we're here and we hear this loud thunderous noise, almost like sheet metal rattling, if you know what that sounds like.
Mhm.
It sounds like thunder. And he said there was like this whirlwind noise, and he said this big black mass, as tall as the ceiling, came floating up the stairs. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm just in awestruck. And I'm like, and he said, where? And then it came up and it kind of disappeared. And I said, where did that happen? He goes, right about where you're standing. God, I could feel all the hairs on my body just standing up. But the guy, come on down. He's like, it's not 9 o'clock yet. Let's go down to the museum. So that's for the time I was in the museum. And so Laurel comes down with me and he's showing me his paintings. In the Halloween room, he had a coffin in there with a wax dummy. It was really cool. I actually have my own Halloween room, but it pales in comparison to his. And it was just so cool, the artifacts and the books. And in fact, I'll show you in a second here. So we go into the museum, and it was close to 9 o'clock, and that's significant because Ed said, he goes, nobody's allowed in here really after 9 o'clock. He goes, I don't even stay here if I don't feel like it's safe. And his office was right off the museum. And so, I don't know, Lorraine yells down to Ed from the upstairs, and, so he goes back through the tunnel to see what she wanted. He looks at me and Laurel, he goes, don't touch anything. I'm like shoving my hands in my pockets. I'm not touching anything. And we're looking around and looking around. And I remember looking up, there's like a rafter, and in these plastic sleeves, and forgive me, I'm just trying to remember correctly. I believe he had copies of Fate magazine. Do you remember Fate magazine? I don't think it's out anymore. It's probably out of print now. Fate magazine was like, I think, one of the original paranormal magazines way back in the day. And they were in plastic sleeves, and I'll show you, they're kind of like hanging, from the rafter. And they're just hanging. There's no breeze, no doors open. All of a sudden, they start doing this really slow. All right. I didn't even notice. And then they start doing this. And they're swaying back and forth, all of them. And there was a few of them. And Laurel's like, she's like, why is that doing that? I'm like, oh. I was like, zoinks. And then next thing you know, Ed comes back. He sees it. He goes, come on, kids, we got to get out of here. It's not safe. There was some activity starting to happen. Of course, Annabelle's right to my left-hand side here. And I'm like, I'm not even looking at that thing. So, that was when we first met. And that was the night they gave me this. I want to show you folks. It's unfortunately, the cover's a little beat up, but this is one of the original copies of the Demonologist. It's now in reprint, I believe, but and had it signed to me by both of them. I don't know if you folks can see it. I got my fingers in the way. But Ed, to my recollection, Ed didn't sign a lot of things, so this means everything to me. I wouldn't sell this for any price, But and I've got Graveyard and a bunch of other books, but Ed didn't sign a lot of things that I remember. And I remember this. If you folks want to see, I don't know if you could see it. This is a print of the painting that Ed did, the White Lady of Union Graveyard. And then there's I don't know if you could see it, signed to Laurel and I. So anything that was signed by both of them was really precious to me because Ed didn't sign a lot of stuff. He was just like, come on, let's get out of here. I want to go eat. So, anyway, sorry to bore you, but those are my fond memories of that, of the Warrens. And I remember Ed's 67th birthday. I think Tony cooked. Tony's an awesome cook.
Mhm. Yeah,
And I
he's
got the
watching right
padding to
now.
prove it. Huh?
He's watching right now. He said he was
Oh, hi,
actually there.
Tony.
He remembers you changing the fuse in the car.
Oh yeah, okay, so good. I'm glad I got some verification. I'm not just making this up. So Tony, I didn't realize you were there. I forgot. I'm not as young as I used to be. So that was just really cool. And matter of fact, a sad story is one day, and I remember it was 1995. Yeah, 95. We were out with Ed in the rain. We had met them at their house, and Ed loved to drive. So they, come on, I'm driving. Let's go. Let's go get something to eat. I'm like, okay, twist my arm. So we ended up in Westbrook, Connecticut, which is quite a distance from where they lived. And we had lunch at a seafood place. And I remember it very vividly because, unfortunately, while we were at lunch, my wife got a phone call. Her mother couldn't wake up her brother. Her brother passed away in his bed, 21 years old. It was I guess he had a heart valve problem or something, that his heart didn't fully develop. He was a preemie, born like 3 months early. So, but he lived to 21 years old. But it wasn't unlike him to sleep a lot. Kids do that. And now that I'm old, I try to do that. But so we were with them, and Ed and Lorraine were so kind and so gracious, and they drove all the way back to my house, which was about 40 minutes north of where we were. Dropped Laurel off because my car was at their house, and dropped her off, and her sister was waiting, and then they took me back to their house, which is, probably another 40 minutes or so from where I live in the other direction. That's a vivid memory I have of being with them. And then ever since then, anytime Laurel, what she really loves is rainbows. And I talk about this when I lecture because I learned this from Ed, and it's very true. At least it is to me. Whenever Laurel would see a rainbow in the sky, she would she would be happy, and she would take that as a sign from her loved ones, that have passed, because she lost her mom, her dad, and her two brothers within 2 years, and my dad passed away within that. So 5 people in our immediate family within a 2-year stretch, which it was tough. It was very very trying, And when her mom died a couple of months after her younger brother, she was pregnant with my son. So I thought she was going to have a miscarriage or something. She was so stressed and distraught. But anyway, it's just a very fond memory that I have with them, and I'll share one more if you permit me, or am I going too long here?
You're fine.
Another one was, we were out again. We were out to dinner or lunch. Ed's driving, and we end up in Milford, Connecticut, and he's like, "I'm hungry. Let's go see Father A." So I remember he just pulls right into the church parking lot. He goes, "You guys stay here. I'll be right back." Goes up to the door. Next thing he's like, "Come on, kids, let's go." So totally unannounced, we show up at Father A's door. Father A is passed now, but I say Father A because I still don't know if the family wants that name revealed, but I know who it is because it was my parish priest when I was a kid. But Father A was an exorcist and would help out on cases at times. But he just showed up at the door, the rectory, and then the poor secretary or administrator or whatever made us all sandwiches. And Laurel and I are looking at each other like, I feel weird. I was a little more comforted when I saw the priest, because I'm like, oh my God, that's Father, from my church, and I think he remembered me. I was obviously much bigger, then, and my mother finally reminded me of the time I used to stand up on the pews going, "Piggy, piggy, piggy," to the priest. That was him. So I mean, I could talk to you all day about memories I have of them,
Mhm,
but it's sad because there's cases I get today where I'm like, God, I wish I could consult with them.
mhm,
I used to consult with Lorraine. I never would bring her on a case, as she got into her older years, because I didn't want to put her through that. But she said, honey, you can call me anytime. And, Tony could probably back me up on this, but, you could call her at 3 o'clock in the morning and she'd answer. I mean,
mhm,
I wouldn't do it. I might have called her once late, but I wouldn't do that out of respect. But if you were in a bind, if you were in a pickle and you needed help, she would never turn you down, and she'd never get upset about it.
mhm.
At least I've never ever heard them get upset. I saw Ed get upset once. I could tell you that story too, but I'll let you get a word in. But and rightfully so. But Lorraine never had a bad word for anyone. I mean, she was the sweetest thing.
Mhm.
I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, you don't need to shut up. Everyone's commenting that they love your stories. But Stephanie says hi,
Mm.
Jimmy says hi, and
Jimmy P, Mr.
yes,
Haunted. Oh,
yep,
hi, Jimmy.
yep.
You still owe me lunch. I'm kidding. I would like to see him though.
Well, he said hi and waved. I was trying to see that what emoji he put there, but yeah, and he waved, and then and like I said, Tony responded he was there. But yeah, everyone's commenting that they love your stories
Hmm.
and they love listening to you.
Yeah, my wife doesn't. That's for another show.
I'll have her on another day. No,
Oh no. Oh no. Please. I'm home alone right now. She's at work, so
when you
I
guys
could
come to
see.
Florida, I'll make sure I talk to her and get all the
Yeah.
dirt.
Well, I hope she can come. It all
Mhm.
depends with her job.
Yeah.
She's not able to make a lot of these functions with me, which is sad because, when we're traveling a lot and gone for days at a time.
Mhm.
But I gave her fair notice. I said, look, Heather and I are working on a bunch of stuff, and if I'm gone for a while, but she's got a job. I'm
Mhm.
retired now, but
Jeff says that sounds like a therapy session, not a show. If I were
yeah,
to have
thanks,
Laurel
Jeff.
on.
Believe me, I tell people all the time. I said Laurel and I have been together for 37 years. Matter of fact,
Mhm.
when we first met the Warrens, we were only dating for a couple of months.
Mhm.
So we met them together.
Mhm.
And so we've been together that long. And I tell people, I said, I have no idea what's going on here. I've tried everything I could, but she won't get rid of me. She won't get rid of me.
It's a sign she's a
So
keeper.
I'm a lucky man. I'm a lucky man. Yeah.
Yeah, well, before we continue, to answer the producer's question, he had said that he wants to hear about the different stages of possession. And then to add on to that, I want to know if you've worked on any possession cases.
Oh boy, different stages. Yeah. And it's hard to tell sometimes the difference. I
Hmm.
mean, you got infestation, oppression, and then possession. You know, infestation is more like haunted house kind of stuff when you got wrappings, doors opening and closing, like kind of like what we call poltergeist activity, just mischievous activity. Obsession, is when you get obsessed with these things, and that's when it could take a turn because one thing I tell people is these things cannot affect you unless you give up free will. God won't even get involved with free will. And when I lecture, I talk about divination, which is basically the act of, foretelling the future or using certain objects to foretell the future, like Ouija boards. That's a big topic I talk about. Ouija boards and divining rods and astrology and crystal balls and seances and even EVP sessions. You don't need a Ouija board to conduct a spirit session, but what you're doing is you're opening doors. I talk about Father Gary Thomas, if anyone's ever heard that name. Father Garen Thomas and I had a few conversations on the phone years back. I haven't talked to him in some time. But he is the priest, the exorcist that the movie The Rite, and the book, I believe, is a book that was based on. RITE, short for the rite of exorcism. And he said to me, I remember one day, I never forget, he's like, remember, Joe, he said, there has to be a way in. How did these things get in? How did they get into your life? You either consciously or unconsciously opened a door for them to come in. And, Ouija boards are probably one of the most prominent. If you're sitting around, I've had cases come in where people say, "Oh, we were playing with a Ouija board at a cemetery, and now we got stuff happening." And I'm like, what the are you doing at a cemetery in the middle of the night with a Ouija board? What were you hoping to accomplish? Well, I know what they're trying to accomplish, and it's the intent behind it. Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I played with a Ouija board when I was a kid. Am I going to get possessed?" I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. I said, but if your intention is to conjure, or maybe you're trying to conjure the spirit of your dead grandmother, and maybe you think you got her, but do you really? Or is it something more sinister? Because that's a doorway. Now you just open the door. It's like opening the front door to your house and saying, "Hey, come on in." What are you letting in? Oh no, don't worry. It's just the spirit of a little girl or a little boy. It's innocent. I'm like, no. How do you know that? Do you want to spin the wheel and roll the dice on that? I mean, and now, they call me or one of my colleagues, my friends, and they want us to help them. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to help you, but I'm not going to show up with a proton pack in my back. It doesn't work that way. I said, you have to have faith. I don't know, we deal with people with no faith. We deal with people from all walks of life and different faiths, but just about, I believe every religion in the world has a form of exorcism, to rid people of evil spirits. And, I did a lot of studying on Father Amorth, if you know who that is. Father Amorth was like the Pope's exorcist. He was the chief exorcist in Rome. He passed away September, I think, of 2016. And I watched a documentary. It's called The Devil and Father Amorth. And if no one's seen it, I would highly recommend you watching it. And I think it was William Friedkin, who was the director or producer of The Exorcist. One of them passed away. I think William Peter Blatty passed away. But Father Amorth allowed him, and only him, not a crew of people, just him, with a handheld camera to follow him around and film exorcisms, what he was doing. And I'm watching it, and even today, it was probably about 6 months ago, I watched it. Every now and then I watch it, and he would always, before the exorcisms start, very discreetly, Father Amorth would make a face, like stick out his tongue, or he'd go like this. In other words, to the demon or the devil, and say, screw you. And he was 9 times they attempted to exorcise this woman from Rome, or a little village outside Rome. 9 times. And he was in the middle of scheduling a 10th attempt, and then he passed away. He was 90, 92, 93. So people that think, once you get possessed and now this entity, demon or legion of demons takes over your body, I say, well, now we have to work backwards and find out where that entry point was, and it's not easy. And sometimes, I remember Ed telling me, he's like, sometimes there's nothing you could do for him, if you've got the chief exorcist in the world, in the Roman Catholic Church anyway, he was called the they called him the Dean of Exorcists or something like that. Trying to exorcise this poor woman. There was nothing to her. She weighed 150 pounds soaking wet, or 120 pounds. She was very small in stature, but you could see, exorcisms usually aren't like Linda Blair. Your head doesn't spin around and it'll start, they'll tense up, their eyes will roll back. They'll start speaking in languages. Usually it's Latin, and, I was involved with them when I was holding them down, these people down. And I was a bigger guy then, Tony will remember. I was 350 pounds. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo and Tang Sudo. Um, you know, uh, Strong as an ox. I used to bench press 600 pounds back in the day. Now I bench press balloons. And if I'm really feeling my oats, I'll actually put air in them. So, uh, so anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. So, yeah, people are like, well, can't you just have an exorcism and get rid of it? I'm like, I can't do the exorcism. I'm not an exorcist.
Mhm.
I said, an exorcist in the Roman Catholic tradition has to be trained by the Vatican, trained at the Vatican. And that's what Father Gary Thomas was. And that the whole point of the movie was to show his journey through that. He was a young priest. I think he's like 68 years old now, but very nice guy. Awesome guy. If you've ever had a chance to listen to his lectures, you can look him up on YouTube, Father
Mhm.
Gary Thomas. So yeah, so there's different stages, and it depends on a lot of things are what you're into. I mean, if you're into satanic worship and then you get possessed, what do you expect's going to happen? You know, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, things like that. But
Mhm. Yeah,
so
actually, no, it's okay. I actually remember it was Paranormal
fixing your
State.
shoe.
Lorraine Warren was on it, and
Yeah,
her recommendation was it was the one episode where the wife kept doing EVP sessions, trying to reach her. I think it was her husband or
yeah.
her son. And Lorraine's like, honey, you got to get her to stop, honey,
You got to
you,
stop doing that.
you got to get her to stop doing that. And that was the only advice that she could offer for that one.
You're right. You're absolutely right because we tell people that think they have something in their home, whether it be just a poltergeist or grandma coming for a visit. I'm like, don't
Mhm,
investigate your own home or your own
mhm,
business because it's up here.
mhm,
One of the first questions I ask people when I interview them is, do you watch any of these TV shows or um, movies? And oh yeah, I love it. So it's psychosomatic. It's already in their head. I mean, obviously, if you're sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning watching The Exorcist by yourself, eating popcorn or whatever, and then the movie's over, and then you start hearing noises. Oh,
mhm,
what was that? There's you always want to look for a natural uh, explanation. And that's where you get the word paranormal or supernatural. They're pretty much interchangeable, but
mhm,
that which science can't explain. Para meaning above normal, above beyond the five senses. There's
mhm,
something that just doesn't make sense. You, you know, but people get fixated on it, and a lot of these people they watch the TV shows, and I'll interview the family together. And then I'll separate them and interview them separately and see if their stories jive. I've had husbands look at me and go, I don't know, she's nuts. I don't hear any of this stuff. I don't see any of this stuff. I'm like, well, it doesn't mean she's making it up. Most people they're not making this stuff up, but in their mind, it's very real, and you got to just talk them back off the ledge.
mhm,
And say, well, when did this all start? Oh, started about a year ago. I'm like, well, can you go back at a point in your life, that may have triggered this? And there may be actually absolutely no paranormal activity going on at all, but they feel it is.
mhm,
And you don't want to say, oh, you're nuts, you're crazy, no, you don't do that. You be very respectful. And I've gone to homes with just to sit with them. I always have my Bible and my holy water with me, and I'll go through the house and I'll bless each window and door with holy oil,
mhm,
holy water. And then 2 weeks later, I'll talk to them and like, Joe, I don't know what you did, but it is gone. And I was
mhm.
thinking to myself, well, that's good. That's great. That's great. Keep it up. Keep up your faith. But I know in my mind that I didn't really think there was anything there. Now, if there was,
Mhm.
it could have been hiding from me. I don't know. They
Yeah.
don't like to jump out and say I'm here, especially if it's something dark and sinister. They want to hide from you. They don't want to
Mhm.
be discovered. They don't want their name found out. That's why when they do an exorcism, it's tell me your name. In the
Mhm.
name of Jesus Christ, reveal your identity, as Ed used to say. Get it to reveal its identity, and that'll weaken it. Now you have power over it.
Mhm.
I see myself as okay. I'm a human. I'm just a guy, but I'm made in God's image. We all are.
Mhm.
Depending on what you believe, but I believe that. So I have an attitude about when I get into cases with demonic entities. I'm like, all right, you're more powerful than I am. Ed used to say this all the time, and Tony will know this. It's like you know, I remember saying to Ed one day, and he said it to Father Charbonneau, I believe, too. I said to him, I'm like, you know, I'm like, well, these things can't defeat us, you know, because, you know, I have God on my side. And
Mhm.
Ed's like, yeah, he goes, God is more powerful than the devil, but no man is. And he said, I think that the Father Charbonneau, he says, God is, God is more powerful than any priest. You know, not more, you know, no 100 priests are more powerful than the devil. And I get that. You know, I understand that, but a lot of people don't. A lot
Mhm.
of people go in there like gangbusters and they think they know what they're doing, and then they're targets. You know, I get concerned, you know, when people that I feel don't have the experience go and do these things, and I don't want to come across as a know-it-all, you know, and who the hell you think you are? You know, I'm like, look, I'm just giving you some friendly advice. It's like when I go to the gym, I tell these kids that are trying to bench press 3 times their body weight, you know, and they got, you know, 6 friends on each side lifting the bar for them. I'm just telling you. I said, I was once a young man like yourself, and you know, I did stupid things. Now I'm full of arthritis. Actually, I got PT today. My shoulders are full of arthritis, and I got tears in my rotator cuff because of years of doing stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it's a serious topic. I had great teachers. I learned volumes, but I don't know everything.
Mhm.
No one knows everything. You know, I remember Ed used to say, you know, answers will come in God's time. You know, they don't come in your time. Same thing with, like demons and negative entities. He's like, you know, you be standing there and, you know, reveal yourself, show yourself. You know, like people that will remain nameless do that. You know who I'm talking about. If this is the gates of hell, why don't you rise up and get me? I'm like, well, you know what? They're just going to do that. They're just not going to do it right now.
Right.
They're going to wait until you're at your most vulnerable point, when
Mhm.
you're weak, you're sickly, you're addicted to alcohol, you're depressed or drugs. It's now you're what I call victim souls. I heard that many years ago, that term. I think Ed said that. Victim souls, people that are targets. I'm very strong in my faith, you know, because faith is the weapon, not this piece. I was gonna get it. Hold on. God, I'm getting old here. Right here.
You need to clean off your desk. No.
Yeah, I know. I'm full of stuff. Anyway, you know, this here, I keep my holy water in here. All right. This is nothing but a piece of metal on a piece of wood, unless you
Mhm.
believe in what this stands for. The power behind this is immeasurable. If you believe and have faith, you
Mhm.
know, crucifix around your neck is nothing but a piece of metal if you don't believe in what it stands for.
Yeah.
A Bible, just a bunch of pages with words written on it. You got to believe in those words. And if you believe in those words, nothing can defeat you,
Mhm.
you know. But people have to be willing to put in the 37 years. You know, what really upsets me today is a lot of these TV shows and things, and some of them are very well done. You know,
Mhm.
some of them are very well done and pretty accurate. But I'm talking about the others. Like there was one, and I hope I don't offend anybody, but there was one called Deep South Paranormal. I think it went on for 3 episodes, and you know, these guys, and you could barely understand them because they had that southern drawl, and and they're talking so fast. I remember
Mhm.
this one episode where the guy was left alone in an old one-room schoolhouse, and the bell was still there, and there was a rope, and he's walking around. Yeah, come out, show yourself. Show yourself. Do something. So all of a sudden, out of the blue, the bell starts ringing. I don't know if it was staged or not, but the guy, I swear, he crapped himself. And he ran out of there. And like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I can't take this anymore. It's like, look, first of all, what are you doing there? Why are you looking for trouble? I
Mhm.
tell people if my phone doesn't ring, I'm happy. I know there's cases out there. It's just my hope that people that have valid cases that actually have paranormal afflictions find the right people to help them.
Mhm.
Like us, you
Mhm.
know. And I'm not trying to diss anybody. I'm just saying, it's not. it's not about thrill seeking and finding that piece of footage or that photograph and throwing it up on Slaptam or YouTube, and getting a million likes. I don't care. I don't even have any of that stuff. I have a Facebook page. That's it.
You
I'm
don't even
I'm
know how to
not.
use it.
I mean, I have enough friends. I know people all over the world. If they need my help, I'm here.
Hmm.
I'm here for anybody. Um, but stuff like this, my job is when I lecture, I see it as I'm educating people.
Hmm.
I'm educating the public. Obviously, when I lecture, I get a lot of paranormal teams that come and I said, look, if you leave here today with a different perspective, that's great.
Hmm.
I said, but if you don't believe in what I'm saying, how I learned, how I was taught, that's fine.
Hmm.
But be respectful.
Yeah.
I've never, that I know of, had to remove a heckler from one of my talks because I just won't put up with it. I just say, look, here's your money back. I don't even charge. I mean, the ones I do for the libraries, I don't charge. That's free to the patrons.
Hmm.
I said, but if you are in the audience and you are a paranormal team, sometimes you can spot them because they all have their t-shirts on. Don't get me started. Uh, now I got myself in trouble with people that have t-shirts. But I mean, on your t-shirt, it shouldn't say paranormal investigations 100% free. I actually saw that. Um, I don't care for that, but that's just me. That's my opinion.
Hmm.
But I tell them, I'm like, listen, I said, find someone or maybe a paranormal. Now, there are many knowledgeable paranormal teams out there and folks, but find someone in your area that you can learn from
Hmm.
and learn the right way. And there's probably far more teams out there that don't do it the right way, but I digress a lot. But my whole point was be willing if you really want to do this work. All I want to do is help people.
Hmm.
I've never made a dime off of this. Yeah, I get paid when I do my lectures and go to colleges and stuff like that. But that's also how Ed and the Rain worked. I mean, their money came from their books and their movies and television.
Hmm.
Um, but they worked since 1952, I believe, when Nesper started. They worked for that.
Hmm.
And they helped countless numbers of people. And that's all I want to do. The message hasn't changed.
Hmm.
Never charge to investigate. Half the time, I got to be honest with you, I don't even charge for travel. People tell me I'm crazy. I'm like, look, the people that I help, many of them, they can't afford it.
Hmm.
If I have to go out, if I have to go to Georgia or Oklahoma or even California, if they can't afford to pay the plane fare, it's like, oh, forget it. I'm not coming. I would never do that. I've never done it.
Hmm.
But there are people out there that would do it. Now, look, people, if they want to cover your travel expenses, no worries. Pay for gas or hotel lodging, something like that. I have no problem with that. But
Hmm.
charging a fee, I had a very bad case a couple of towns over from me some years ago. The building has since been sold and demolished, and it's now a Taco Bell. Let me tell you, it's the most haunted Taco Bell I've ever seen. But what I'm saying is, the owner was a friend, and she told me she paid this woman. I won't mention her name, of course, but she said she probably paid her a total of $15,000. I thought she might have been. I said, "Are you exaggerating?" She's no. She was. I gave her thousands of dollars, probably about $15,000, and she told me this. She cleared the place. She didn't clear the place. Trust me.
Hmm.
So, I got. This is before I got involved. I'm like, don't. Why didn't you call me? She's like, oh, I didn't want to bother you. No bother. You're not bothering me. That's what I'm here for. So I spent years helping her with that place, and it was a restaurant slash bar,
Hmm.
and there was activity almost nightly. I mean, she's got thousands of hours of surveillance footage of activity. I mean, the cash register flipped over. She had an old cash register, and it was heavy.
Hmm.
It'll just flip over. I mean, grandma's ghosts can't do that. They don't have that kind of strength. But anyway, so when the activity picked up again, I said, well, did you call this woman back and why get your money back or something? The woman told her something. I'm trying to remember. Told her something along the lines of, well, you must have done something to bring it back. It's like, Okay, you just got swindled on a lot of money, in my opinion. I
Mhm.
don't know the woman personally. I remember her name, but anyway, it's really hard to charge somebody for something that is hard to prove.
Mhm.
It's really hard to prove. Demonic possession or oppression. The devil made me do it, like Arnie
Mhm.
Johnson.
Yep.
Um, but that was a real case. But the courts wouldn't allow it. The courts wouldn't
Mhm.
hear of it. Which is sad. Um, I lost my train of thought there for a second, but what else you got for me? Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, Bill. Thank you for joining. Bill says, "Hey, Heather and Joe." And Kenneth did ask a question a little bit ago. He said, "When was the last confrontation you had with an evil entity?"
Well,
He's too
the
old. He
last
forgot,
one
Kenneth.
or probably the most violent one.
He said last one.
They look. They're
Oh, you muted yourself, Joe. You muted yourself, Joe. Hello? It looks like Joe's having technical issues. There you go. I can't hear you, though. Exactly, Kenneth. Oh, Todd says he's working on it. Okay. So while he's working on that, if you guys have any questions,
Can you hear me
feel
now?
now we can. There you go.
Anything?
Yep.
No?
Yes,
You
he
got me?
must not be able to
All
hear
right,
me.
hold on.
Yep.
You can hear me now?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you now. Son of a gun. Something's not happy with me. Let me see. I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying to fix this issue. This never happened before.
And I know Todd's on the back end working, trying to fix it. But yeah, Kenneth, you're right. We talk about negative entities, and here he has issues. The most recent demon is right now. You can see the gears turning in his head. He's thinking. Technical demons. This is actually more funnier than listening to the stories. He's, nope.
How about now?
Yep. Can you hear me?
All right, so you can hear me now, but I can't hear you.
Oh, go figure.
This is really strange. I just reset my headset. Let
Hmm.
me see if I can take it off.
By the way, oh,
Give me a
thank you.
minute. I'm gonna use my phone. I'm gonna have to.
Okay, I did all I can. It must be, yeah. He's gonna redo his phone, Todd. I think he's gonna switch over. Thank you. I'm visiting my parents, so I
Give
kind
me a
of
sec,
brought them
folks.
with them. So while he's working on that, we will get
I think
back.
my wife's watching because she said unmute. Thank you, honey. I've tried that.
uh, Dorothy, we'll get him back on, and hopefully he'll be sharing a lot more stories. I love having Joe on because he takes most of the show, and I don't need to prepare too much. So we will be working on that, and make sure you guys ask any questions you have. We still have about 30 minutes left of the show. And actually, while we wait for Joe to
I'm
fix
trying to
this, why don't
call in
we?
through my phone, Heather.
Okay. We'll go to Todd, if you can take us to a quick commercial break while he gets that worked out, and then we'll be back in just a moment.
Want to see your video here? Sponsor WLTK-DB Talk Radio and watch us make that happen. With your paid sponsorship of $80, you receive a professional produced audio, video, and banner placement on our station. Not only does your sponsorship air during our live shows, but also replayed on our podcast and heard by hundreds of like-minded people. Visit WLTK-DB.com to get started and find out just how hard we work to get you noticed.
Hey, welcome back. Joe, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know what's going on with my mic. My headset's fully charged. I apologize to everybody.
Oh, no, that's completely fine. We were having fun joking while you were trying to fix it.
I know, you're making fun of me. My wife sent me a message. She's like, unmute. I'm like, I'm trying. I know. So I'm using my phone. If I can get it to stay. There we go. How's that?
That works.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't know. I don't even remember what I was saying.
Oh, Kenneth had asked, what was your most recent encounter with a negative energy?
Well,
Besides now.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me take this off. Because, I'm hearing feedback through my headset. I thought it was hooked up to my phone. Most recent, I mean, it's been a number of years where we had like a really bad demonic case. That case in Enfield, Connecticut, I remember that, but that was going back a few years. We've got a couple of cases we're working on now. Ken knows that, but I'm not convinced that they're demonic. And we haven't gotten that far yet. But the case that I'm thinking of is a number of years ago. We had an investigator that wandered off and was taking photographs, and she was literally picked up and thrown against the wall. She was a good-sized woman, she's like 5'7", 200 some pounds, and she said it felt like she had two linebackers rush her. And she lifted her off of her feet. Okay. And that one was a bad case. From what I understand, the activity has diminished greatly. The family still lives in the house. But I still think they have activity time to time, but nothing to that degree. We would hear growling. I actually have a video of it. You can hear growling in the background, and you would smell these awful, I guess, described as rotten egg smells, sulfuric smell. The husband was in the basement and saw something black, dark entity. I mean, even darker than dark. And he said he could see like eyes. I didn't see it. But things would happen like they had a Tiffany lamp, and our family was in the living room watching TV. The Tiffany lamp, if everyone knows what a Tiffany lamp looks like, it's got the point. So the lamp lifted up, turned upside down, and stuck right into the hardwood floor. Made like a 1-inch square hole in the floor. It's been a long time since I've been assaulted.
I remember there was a case 20 years ago or so where I was picked up and thrown about 12 feet. I was like 350 pounds. I was heavier than I am today, bigger. And, Casper the Friendly Ghost can't do that. Doesn't have that kind of power. Ghosts and spirits, I mean, they can move certain smaller items. They can touch you, they can slap you, things like that. But you can't pick up a 350 plus pound guy and throw him 12 feet across the room. And it was very disturbing. How many people out there can say that it wouldn't bother them? I mean, I think I was more angry than I was scared at the time, because I got up and I'm like, I won't say what I said, but I said something in the law. I'm like, if that's all you got, I mean, because this was a home where there were children involved and the children were being bothered. I'm like, oh, you pick on children. How?
Uh-oh, he froze. Oh, sorry, guys. We've lost Joe again. So, yeah, go figure. Like Kenneth had mentioned earlier, we were talking. There you are.
I don't know. Something does not want me to talk to you guys today.
No, and that's what it was mentioned in the comments that, we talk about negative energies and now you start having technical difficulties.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've had some issues lately because there's cases that I have ongoing, and I know they come, they visit me, they check me out. I mean, there was one night I had stuff going on behind me. My wife was at work because she works third shift, seems to work all the time, actually. I was the only one in the house. I'm sitting down here and I can just sense something behind me. And I just said, you know what? I'm not in the effing mood. Leave me alone. I wasn't in the mood. And it hung around for a while. And I'm like, look, if you want to stay, do the laundry. The laundry room's in there. It's not something to be taken lightly. Obviously, I joke, but, anytime you're working a case like that, expect to have something visit you. Because these things, and Tony will tell you this, they have the wisdom of the ages. They know who you are.
And he froze again. Yeah, Lee, it was quite a interesting shot that we captured him in last time. And his little Annabelle doll would be interesting.
You.
Yep, there you go.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm on my cell phone now. But I started to say before I cut off, I'm like, these things, they know who you are, what you've done, where you've been. They know when you're coming, but you just have to be careful. You never know, even if a case initially sounds like it's nothing, you always need to be prepared. You always, got to make sure you're prepared, and be careful who you bring with you, and make sure you tell the family what you expect. In other words, there's been times I've gone to people's homes or place of business, and there'll be, a dozen people there. I'm like, who are all these people? And they're like, they're like friends or people that were just interested and they wanted to be there. Oh, Joe's coming. I want to be. I'm like, no. I said, they're going to have to leave, or, they don't take it seriously. I had one guy tell me years ago, he's like, well, I don't want you to get rid of it. I just want you to verify. I said, that's not what I do. And I left. He's like, no, I don't want you to get rid of it. He thought it was cool that he may have had a ghost.
Yeah.
Spirits are everywhere. I mean, I'm a spirit. You're a spirit. We're just in a physical shell. If that's what you believe.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of, I try to do more investigating before I even decide to take a case, because your time is valuable. You don't want to waste your time. I know, with COVID, there was a couple of years where none of us were allowed to really go into people's homes and stuff like that. So we did a lot of StreamYard or Zoom meetings, Skype, things like that.
Yeah.
I hope I don't lose you again. I'm sorry, everyone.
No, that's okay. Courtney says she's waiting for the doll behind you to start waving.
Well, no, that's Hannibal. That's the good sister. That's what I call it, a good sister. But I will tell you guys something. this is the God's honest truth. The doll I usually have in that position where you see it. Well, a couple of nights ago, I was on the phone discussing a case, and and I didn't see it happen, but the doll moved about 90 degrees. So the next thing I didn't see it happen, but all of a sudden the doll's turned, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and it was looking towards me. And I'm like, all right, I have 5 cats. So I'm thinking, okay, let's try explain this naturally. But I've never seen my cats up on my bureau here. Mm-hmm. They don't usually go up there. But is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. But I know what I know, because I know where everything is here and how it's positioned. And I didn't see it happen. Mm-hmm. I have weird things that happen here. I don't even tell my wife. She knows now. She's still watching. She's just like, all these years she's been extremely supportive, and I love her to death. But she's like, don't you bring anything home with you. I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I do protect myself pretty well. Mm-hmm. You know, and protect my family. I got so mad one time. I had something going on here, and my kids were very small at the time. And I got so pissed off. I said, if you bother my family, I said, I swear to God, I'll kill myself and come after you in the afterlife. I was so mad. You know, I've had things happen here, like, you know, I had like a hammer or a wrench go missing, and I found it in not the walk-in freezer, the chest freezer. Mm-hmm. You know, items would apport, they would disappear. Some things they would, and that's why when I can't remember where I put my keys, I'm like, you son of a, give me my keys back. You know, Laura's like, oh, just pray to St. Anthony. Just pray to St. Anthony. And sure enough, I'd find them. She's like, see? You know,
they love messing with you.
But, well, listen, just because you can't explain something doesn't mean it's paranormal. Mm-hmm. You know, I have some timers. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't. You know, but no, I you know, all kidding aside, you know, people shouldn't think that if something happens they can't explain, don't immediately go to, I have a demon in my house. Mm-hmm. You know, which brings up another thing is there are groups out there that will get involved, and maybe they have the best interests at heart and really want to help the people, even though deep down they know they can't, or they're not experienced enough. Because if something really bad is happening, I've had people contact me and say, yeah, I had, you know, ABC Paranormal in here, and they said I have a demon.
Yep, there we go. Joe needs better internet connection up there in Connecticut. I'll give him a few seconds. Nope, we lost him.
I'm back. I'm sorry. I don't know what it is. Now first it was my computer. Now it's my phone.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, anyway, so I don't know if you heard that last sentence, but I said, you know, these groups, you know, they'll tell people you have a demon here, and I can't help you. Mm-hmm. Or they'll be investigating the home and something will happen. There's one case I remember, it sticks out in my mind, where the homeowner told me that the group was there for a couple of hours, and then there was a can of caviar on the kitchen counter, and they said that the can exploded. Just the lid popped off and caviar went all over the place. Mm-hmm. They got so freaked out, they just packed up and left. He's like, Joe, they couldn't get out of here fast enough. I said, they just left you? I said, you know, he said they gathered their equipment and they left, and they didn't call him back, and he couldn't reach them. They wouldn't return his calls. And I was pretty angry by that. I said, well, I hope that if I look up their website is shut down and their Facebook page is closed down and they're no longer doing this. Nope. Mm-hmm. Nope. Looked it up, and they're up onto another case. Mm-hmm. The case manager of that group contacted me and filled me in on a lot of stuff. I won't get into it, but mm-hmm. She confirmed that the caviar incident was true. I said, well, please tell me somebody had a camera on it. Because as far as I'm concerned, and I shouldn't say this, but I get aggravated. And I say, you know what? If you don't have any evidence, it didn't happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't mean to sound, you know, rude by saying that, but I remember, Lorraine always used to tell me, she's like, honey, if we need to get the church involved, we have to go to them with overwhelming evidence. We can't just knock on the rectory door and say, I need an exorcism. Oh yeah, I'm free at 1:00. Come back. Like you have to have tangible evidence, something that you could witness, and show the church.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had cases where, look, Father Joe down the street at your local parish can't do an exorcism. He could perform a mass. He could perform deliverance prayers, which any of us can do. That's like a layman's form of exorcism. But, priests are people first. They're human beings. I've had a lot of priests, and I'm sure a lot of folks listening will attest to this. The priests, they get scared.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple of times happen to me where the priest would call me maybe an hour before I'm supposed to meet him at a house with the family, and they would say, I can't make it. I can't go. Something came up, or my bishop told me I couldn't go, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is unfortunate. And we do the very best we can to help the folks. We've been very successful through the years, but I'm not going to lie to you. There's been cases that have even stumped me. And I tell folks, I said, look, you need to band together as a family. And in a lot of these cases, the family bickers. Mm-hmm. One in particular, there was a brother-in-law and sister-in-law living in the same house, and they hated each other. I mean, despised each other. I pulled her aside because he wouldn't listen to me. But I said, if you guys can't come together as a family, then there's not anything I can do for you. Nobody can do anything for you. Right. I said, you need to band together as a family and love one another. And, they just weren't willing to do that. So they moved. Well, guess what? Whatever was there followed them. Mm-hmm. Just because you move your physical location doesn't necessarily mean that the entity stays put. It followed them. I want to say 3 times or 2 times. But this is a case that started in 2011, and I still keep in touch with the family today. Seems to be pretty good today. Mm-hmm. But one thing I found out after the fact, and the parents didn't even know, so they tell me, I believed them, that the girl, now again, this is 2011, she's an adult now, but she was 13 years old. She was into witchcraft. I think I have one of the books here I took from the house. This is one of the books.
Okay. Oh, perfect time to freeze again. Oh, poor Joe.
I know you're laughing at me. This is one of the books I took from the house. And there was another spell book. And found out she and her friends were playing with the Ouija board. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there you go. No wonder you got stuff going on.
I can't wait for you to see my bookshelf.
Yeah, well, it's probably bigger than mine, but
but it's full of books like that.
I don't know how to read.
Joe.
I got your book. Where is it? I got your.
Oh, he froze. Yeah, I know he has a copy of my Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns, and you guys need to get on him because he does need to finish the foreword for my next book.
I'm back.
Yep, and I was telling everybody.
I was giving you a shameless plug. I got your book right here.
Yeah,
great book. I read the whole thing.
And I was telling everybody to get on you to get my foreword done.
No, I'm actually been working on it. Yeah. I'll talk to you later after the show.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was told I'll have the edits next week, so you have at least another week.
All right, no worries. It shouldn't take me that long. I've just been so preoccupied. And I told my wife, I said, I've got to write Heather's forward. I said, but I need to be left alone. When I write, I zone out. And if someone comes home and they interrupt me, it's not their fault. They didn't know what I was doing. I just need to go to the cabin in the woods and just be like Grizzly Adams and just write.
I would love to find a quiet little location to write.
Yeah. It's it's not easy, but it is. I'm because I'll write it. I pretty much have it written, but now I'm just going over it, and I'm just very meticulous when I write because I want it to be accurate, and I don't want to sound like a raving lunatic.
No, that's completely fine. I do appreciate you writing that, though.
No, I'm honored that you asked me to do it. Thank you so much, and I hope you like it when you get it. Otherwise, you'll have to rewrite it.
I'll let the editors do that.
Okay, all right.
So we have a little bit less than 15 minutes left. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we go?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Unless anyone has any questions, but no one's asked any yet.
I put them all to sleep.
You did? No.
Yeah. I put them all to sleep. Well, I mean, I did want to add, I think you touched on it before, is that you and I have been working together on, what we're trying to do is get a lecture circuit going. We'd like to capitalize on your new book that's coming out. I think you said in September, is it?
September 11th.
Okay. September 11th, and tour some of these locations, these lighthouses. I'm a lighthouse lover. I love lighthouses. Most of the people that know me will know that. I just love the history of them. And if they're alleged to be haunted, that's a bonus. However, you and I would like to go and see if we can authenticate those claims.
Yeah.
Just because we can't doesn't mean it's not haunted. We just didn't find anything. But, my thoughts were maybe, I don't know if you want me to mention it, but we would lecture and then possibly set up a lighthouse tour for a certain number of individuals. You couldn't have 100 people go, but, I'm sure people, I've always found that this subject always seemed to fill the place because you'll never find a lack of interest in this subject. I know a lot of the stuff you see on television is not real. Investigations aren't portrayed exactly how they are, and that's fine because they're edited for time and content and everything. I get all that. But some of them are very, very well done and on the money. But I will say this, and again, it is not my intention to offend anyone, but you really can't get your paranormal training from watching TV. You need to take a course if they're available. I've been asked many times to teach classes on what I know, which is, very, it's very humbling. But, in the town where I live, the woman at the adult education department's been after me. I know Jimmy used to do it. I don't know if Jimmy still does it. He used to do it in his town, is to give, like Paranormal 101. Just, start from the beginning. And I would just go back to my beginnings and teach what I was taught. I'll tell you another funny story. Heather, you know this one, but I don't know if everyone's heard this. So the first time that I went out exploring with Ed and Lorraine, it was at the cemetery where they're resting. And we were taking psychic photographs or spirit photography, however you want to put it. And I remember Ed saying, he's like, well, make sure you take a lot of shots of the old headstones, because sometimes when you develop the film, you can see faces in the headstones. Like the stones that are so old and oxidized that you can't read them anymore sometimes because the lettering's all been eroded away. And so I went out, and my wife's probably laughing if she's still listening. I went out and bought a brand new camera for this event because I knew it was coming up. Brand new camera. It's like, yeah, get 400 speed film. Seems to be the best, because if you get 1,000 speed, it kind of, when you blow the picture up, it gets kind of grainy. So this is back in the day of Polaroid. Most of your audience probably doesn't know what that is, but so I did that. And so we get to the cemetery and it's daylight, maybe it's 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm taking pictures for 15 or 20 minutes. And Ed's going around pointing to this, take a picture of this. He looks at me, he goes, Joe, you got to take the lens cap off. I was so embarrassed. But I was so excited. I was still a teenager. I'm like, I was so excited. I wanted to get these photographs that I forgot to take the lens cap off. So
what would have been interesting is if you captured stuff with the lens cap on still.
well, yeah, like the Amazing Kreskin or something. I don't know. Well, it's just a fond memory. I have so many fond memories of Ed and Lorraine, and not only their teachings, but knowing them as people. I mean, they were like typical grandparents, very, very gracious and very humble. I mean, they'd give the shirt off your back to you. The story where I saw Ed get mad, I'll tell you that, because it had a good outcome. But we were at the Stony Hill Inn, and Tony will probably remember this. And they had scheduled, I think our show was supposed to start at 5. I'm trying to remember. I'm going back 25 years probably. Our show was supposed to start at 5. And when we got to the place, we got there early. We got there with Ed and Lorraine and Tony and a couple other people were there. Jimmy might have been there too. Because we had to set up, we had to run cables for the TV and stuff. We didn't have Wi-Fi then. And there was a wedding going on. And we're all looking at each other like, we got to get in this room, and there's a wedding going on. Next thing I hear, Ed and the owner of the place or the manager are going at each other. I swear they were going to come to blows. The veins are popping out. Both of them are yelling back at each other because, the Warrens had this, booked for a year, like a year in advance. And somebody made a mistake and overbooked, and the wedding was supposed to go to 6. So there's like an hour overlapping. But then the staff needed some time to clean up, change out the tablecloths and all that. But I had never seen him so angry in my life. He never got mad at me. Thank God. Chris will say, I remember Chris will say, he said this to a lot of audiences. He's like, my grandfather loved you. He didn't like me. I'm like, well, it's because you're kidding. But he's like, yeah. He's like, my grandparents loved you. I'm like, well, I love them. I still do, and I always will, and I'll be eternally grateful for what they taught me. And I miss them. And I feel bad for people that say to me, geez, Joe, I wish I got to meet them. Because I said they would have loved you and you would have loved them. They were just normal people. I say, like me, I say, I'm a normal guy. Well, depends on how you look at it, but I'm a normal guy with an abnormal hobby. So I'll leave you with that because it gets long-winded here.
That's no problem. But
I do put your audience to sleep. They're probably all snoring.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've commented. No, but I do appreciate you joining, and thank you again for all the amazing stories. And definitely have to have you on again in the future. Everyone loves to hear you talk. We'll definitely have to have another show where we talk about what we've planned once we have it all finalized.
And I'm very sorry about the technical glitches, but that's the first time that's happened. I mean, and I go on my phone and it happened again. I don't know. Could it be forces at work here? Yeah, it could be, but probably never be able to prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but again, Lee says she's not asleep. But thank you again, everyone, for watching, and make sure you tune in next week for Women of the Paranormal with Catherine Sorilos, Aurora North, Nicole Ray, and Christine Ayers. They'll all be joining me to talk about our experiences. And again, a big shout out to my sponsor, Omni Interactions. Take time today and learn more about their self-scheduling opportunities, which are perfect for a life of a paranormal researcher. Learn more at getgig.life/paranormal. And again, Joe, thank you for joining us, and I'll be talking to you later today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks for listening to me.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. You guys have a great week.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.